that I killed that. I knew I killed that exam before. Like, I knew that exam, I knew I did good because I was literally typing, just, it was flowing out of me because I had practiced so much. And from that day on, I realized, what's up, you guys? It's your girl Angela with the Aspiring Boss. Welcome back to my channel. Hello, if you're new, I'm Angela. Today's video, we're going to be talking about final exams, okay? And this one is for you 1Ls who are taking your first round of final exams. This video was literally inspired by me looking at my calendar and realizing, oh crap, a lot of my audience are 1Ls, okay? And this is going to be their first law school exam process ever. And I thought, okay, I know how they feel. I remember how they feel. They're scared, okay? They are anxious and they are nervous. And so I thought, okay, Angela, you need to make a video to help your people out, okay? So I've been thinking about it, and so I'm gonna just go through some of the tips that helped me. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you already know that I did really well in law school. Up on the end of my first semester of law school, I had a 3.95 GPA, which helped boost my career starting in law school. So I thought about everything that I did, you know, from beginning to end of law school. So I'm just gonna go through those tips so you can start implementing them into your study schedule. Right now, we're wrapping up October, and November is when you guys will start studying, or at least for me. I started studying a month out from my first final, or a little bit over a month out from my first final. I'll jump into my study schedule later on in the video, so make sure you stick around. Also, I'm gonna put on the screen one of my sample outlines for one of my classes so you guys can kind of see what my outlines look like when I study, how I study. Okay, one disclaimer is that a lot of these tips are really essay focused, right? In law school, you have essay exams and you have multiple choice exams. As a 1L, majority, if not all of your exams are gonna be essays. In my opinion, I really love essays because not everyone is good at them. Not everyone has the, you know, the tips and the tricks to really kill an essay. So in my opinion, an essay is an easier way to set yourself apart from the rest of your cohorts and classmates and really kill it in that class. So I personally love essays. So a lot of my tips are going to be based on essays. All right, let's jump into the first tip. Memorize the black letter law as much as you can. It's an easy way to pick up points on the essays, you guys. If you know the definition of assault, the full definition, and you write it in your essay, you're gonna pick up all the points you can for stating that rule of law. So I think memorization is important. Okay, and to piggyback on this, some schools, not my school, but some schools allow you to take open book exams. I had no open book exams my first year, but some people will. And I think that causes people to make a fatal mistake. They feel like they don't need to memorize. They feel like they can just look up, you know, things as they go. But you guys, these essays are timed. And even if you have an exam that's 4 hours long, that time will fly. Do not rely on an open book exam. Study as if you do not have an open book exam. That is crucial. All right, my next tip is to practice issue spotting. You guys, law school essays, there's going to be just so many opportunities for you to pick up points. Professors will throw in little issues, little nuggets that if you studied and you prepared and you paid attention in class, you will catch and you will pick up a lot of points. But issue spotting is an art. It's not something that comes intuitively. One, you have to study, but two, you have to practice it. So make sure you're practicing issue spotting. And by practicing issue spotting, all you have to do is look at, you know, practice exams or practice questions and just, you know, keep practicing that over and over. The next tip is make sure you review and understand the examples laid out in your outline. So in your outline, you're most likely going to have examples that the professor pointed out in class next to a principle of law. So for example, with assault, you probably are going to have some sort of mini, you know, example of what assault is. So those examples are the types of things that will help you issue spot in your essays, right? So if you get a scenario on assault, remember that. Not only remember it, but you need to understand it. So if you see something similar on an exam, you'll be able to spot that as assault. Okay, so the next tip is a big one. When your professor passes out the exam and you know you have the fact pattern and then there's a call of the question, always read the call of question first, you guys. Read the call of the question first and then read the fact pattern. If you don't read the call of the question first, you're bound to make the mistake of honing in on issues that aren't relevant to the question, okay? Sometimes there will be assault in there, but if the call of the question is talking about murder, then you don't need to pay attention to that. So always read the call of the question before you read the fact pattern and start, typing away on your computer. Okay, so the next tip is when you do your practice exams, take them timed. You guys, the law school final exams are timed, okay? So you should go ahead and simulate that. Now, starting off early in your studies, maybe, you don't have to, so you can, make sure you're comfortable with the material, make sure you're learning. But you do need to make sure that a part of your practicing time is timed, so you're ready on exam day. I can't tell you how many people ran out of time in their exams. Now, what I will say, there are some professors who are cruel, who do not expect you to finish their exams. But I would say majority of my professors who had ample time to complete the exam. But some people did not, just because they weren't used to taking the test under pressure, because they didn't practice timed exams. So make sure you do that. Okay, so this next tip, people have different, ideas about this, but this is something that worked tremendously for me. As you read the fact pattern in an essay, highlight, underline, make little notes while you're reading the fact pattern, after you've read the call of the question, like I said earlier. But there are some things that will literally jump out at you, especially if you prepared and you don't want to forget. Sometimes these fact patterns are super long, and you know how it is where you see something, you tell yourself you're going to remember it, and then you forget. So I always made little notes as I was reading the fact pattern, like, really short. Do not get bogged down in the details, because again, it's timed. You need to get through the entire fact pattern before you can write the answer to your essay. But yeah, write down those little tips as you're reading. That was super beneficial for me. Okay, so along that same line, once you read the call of the question, read the entire fact pattern, now you're ready to answer the question, right? Wrong. I always wrote a little mini outline on my scratch paper of what I wanted to say. Now, I will say it should be very basic, because as you get into the exam, especially if you studied hard, things are going to jump out. Ideas are going to come, and you're just going to be rolling. But having a little outline to help you go, to keep it all in order, I just think is super beneficial to you and super beneficial to the reader. Because you have to remember, your professor is going to read this, right? And your professor is going to grade you against others. If there are 2 exams and they have 2 great answers, but one's a little bit more organized than the other, the professor is going to give that exam the higher grade, likely. It's just what it is. Okay, so the next tip is to use the IRAC method. Now, if you're in law school, you already know what the IRAC method is, or the CRAC method, but IRAC is issue, rule, analysis, conclusion. That is what I like to use. It just really sets out to the professor that you know your stuff, you know what you're talking about. You can identify the issue, you can state the rule, and like I said, the better you can state it, the more points you're gonna get. You can apply the rule, which is super important, and then you can conclude. And this piggybacks on another tip. Okay, so for me, I always argue both sides of whatever the issue is. That is what lawyers do. We always have to know both sides. And so that's what law professors like to see. However, some people like to teeter-totter on, oh, it could be this or it could be this. I will say it could be this, but it could be this. And I always conclude by saying, but it's this. It is okay if you're wrong, you guys, because there's always multiple answers. Like, that's just how the law school exams are. But I think professors like for you to conclude. So let's talk a little bit more about prepping for the law school exam. So one thing you're gonna wanna make sure that you do, if you're taking your exam on a computer, which majority of people do, you want to make sure that your exam software is, tried, true, and tested. The last thing you want to do is prepare to take an exam on the computer and then last minute have to handwrite the exam. You guys, I could not even imagine. I used to type so much. I cannot imagine writing my law school exams. Now, I know the older generation will tell you that's what they had to do, but hey, it's 2020. And if you have the opportunity to type your essays, you totally should. Now, some people prefer handwriting. I did see people, there were a few people in my section who hand wrote, but if you are a fast typer, type all the way. So make sure that software is good, okay? The software will allow you to do some practice on it before the actual exam day. Just make sure you know your stuff. Make sure you know how to copy, paste, delete, all those things before you get into that exam. So if you guys been watching my videos, you already know that I tell you guys that you need to have an outline from the beginning of class, whether that means starting your own outline from scratch or using a previous outline and go along and tweak it to your needs throughout the semester. But let's be honest, there's going to be some of you guys out there who just did not do that. You couldn't find an outline. You got behind in your own outline, whatever. So we're here now. It's almost time to start studying. there's nothing you can do about it. You know, you can't go back and outline. So here's what you need to do. Reach out to a trusted colleague, reach out to somebody in your class, get that outline and start studying theirs. You know, I personally do not like to study other people's outlines that I haven't put my own tweak on it, because everyone consumes information different. But I will say a lot of these outlines have been around for years. The professors really don't change their, you know, lesson plans that much. And, you know, the outlines, you know, some of the outlines that I used or started with were from years prior. So it's not the end of the world that you don't have your own outline or you didn't outline from the beginning. Get someone's outline that you trust and start studying. Okay, so this one is huge. Now is the time that you need to be confirming your law school finals study schedule. You guys, your study schedule is everything. So I think my study schedule in law school was amazing. I started this my 1L year and continued it all throughout law school, and it really worked for me. I did really well in law school. And I really think the way I studied, my schedule had a lot to do with it. So I thought I would walk you guys through my schedule. My main classes my first year, I think, were contracts, criminal law, civ pro, and property. Obviously LRW, you know, but you don't have a written exam for LRW. So we're gonna leave that one off. So 4 exams that I had to prepare for. So what I would like to do is, if my test started in my test would usually start in the first week of December, right? And so I, you know, have 2 tests the first week of December and 2 tests the second week of December. So I would start studying by November 1, okay? And I would have my schedule of what I was going to study. So if I had contracts, crim law, civ pro, property, and, you know, in that order, that was my first, second, third, fourth exam. I would start studying November 1 for property. Like, I would start with my last exam first, and then I would take 2 weeks. I would split studying up for those 4 exams in a 2-week increment. From November 1st to November 15th, I would study those 4, starting with the last test to the first test, and then repeat. I would do a full round of studying for those 4 classes twice before hitting, you know, the weeks of the final exams. So hopefully that makes sense, because I feel like it sounds convoluted, but it's really, really good. And maybe I'll put something up. You guys can actually see it and understand what I'm trying to get at. So I would split up those 4 exams within a 2-week time span, to where at the end of the 2 weeks, you know, starting the 15th, I have already fully studied for every single class. And then I would start over. And so by the time I hit December 1, which I have 2 tests this week now, I would have already studied 2 full times, and now I'm studying again for my first exam, which I can't remember what I said the first exam was, but I'm now studying again for my first exam. And then I take that, I study up until that exam. After that exam, I go straight to studying for the next one. And then after that exam, I go straight to studying for the next one. And then I go straight into studying for the last one, which was property, which is the first exam I studied for. But yes, so I would do 2 like super full rounds of studying, and then also have enough time, like, you know, days before each exam to study again. And so by the time I got to those exam days where I'm studying, it's really just refreshing and practicing, because I've studied so much for that month that the material is coming back to me. It's crazy. It sounds really hard, but you guys, it really does work. Okay, so like I said, I'm gonna put a sample study schedule up for you guys, so you guys can use that, because now is the time to finalize that schedule. You need to be starting your studying by November 1. And when I say studying, I mean full on studying. Now, obviously those first 2 weeks you might still be in class, but hopefully by the second 2 weeks you are just kind of full on studying every single day. And also, we're coming up on the holidays, and so, you know, Thanksgiving is coming. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. My family lived, you know, in Dallas, and I was in Houston, and honestly I was just uncomfortable going home for the holidays, because I was just really stressed out about final exams. So I did not actually go home for Thanksgiving. I just went to a friend's house, so I didn't have to travel and stuff. But if you're in the same town as your family, I would, you know, take time off for Thanksgiving. Like, I would not, you know, see your family. But if you have to travel, it's something I would really consider, because it's really hard to study with family around. It's just what it is. It's hard to study with people around. So something to think about. Then, you know, you'll be right back home for Christmas, and by Christmas, you know, your exams will be over and you can enjoy, you know, Christmas break. But yeah, just something to think about. So now I'm gonna go into how I study, you guys, and I promise this was so helpful for me. So listen up. So I would take my outline, right? Mind you, my outline is ready. By the time I start studying day 1, like, yeah, you're gonna have to add in a little stuff because you're in class, but for the most part, you got the meat, right? So I would take my outline and literally the best way I can describe it is comb through it. I would read it from top to bottom, beginning to end, and make sure I understood every single concept in that outline. This is all for comprehension at this point. I'm reading for comprehension. I'm reading slowly. I'm reading every word. I'm rereading if I don't understand. This would probably take like, minimum 12 hours, like a full day of just reading my outline. Then I would move on to memorizing the outline. So I know a lot of people use like flashcards or supplemental stuff. I honestly didn't do that. I studied with my outline because it was just so good. You don't need supplemental things if you have everything in your outline. You just don't. And flashcards, I did use them for a bar exam, but I didn't use them much in like actual exams for law school. I just used my outline. After I did that full read through, I would start to memorize the black letter law. And so as you'll see in my outline, because I'm going to put it up here, I will have certain things bolded. Make sure I understood those. Make sure I memorized those. So while memorizing though, I would look at the examples too and drill them in my head. Make sure I understood the examples. The examples are just as important as knowing the law because that's how you identify it and that's how you truly understand it and are able to analyze the actual rule of law. And a lot of people say they struggle with memorization, and I get it because memorization can be hard, but you just kind of have to be repetitive. For me, I would practice memorizing. I would memorize, and then I would try to spit it back out, whether that be verbally or typing it. And I found that I like to type it. And so I would just go through a list of printables and just see what I can type out and just do it over and over again. And you guys, honestly, it sounds miserable. It sucks. But you guys, it's a month and a half of studying that could literally change the trajectory of your life. I don't know that I would be where I am today if I didn't do so well in law school. That's just facts. Not that I couldn't get there, not that I couldn't be successful, but it's definitely been an easier ride. So when you are thinking about wanting to give up, just remember how good it will feel when you get that exam back and you got an A or an A+, or better, the highest grade in the class. Because that's happened to me a few times, and I'm gonna tell you, it's a good feeling. Also with memorization, it doesn't have to be word for word. Just make sure you understand the general concept and that you can spit it back out. But I will say, if you study like I just told you to study, you're gonna memorize probably word for word. I would find myself in the final exam literally saying the whole rule of law. I'm like, dang, I didn't even know I knew that. Okay, so after you comb through the outline, you know every concept in that outline, and you have now memorized and understood the concepts, it's time to practice now. Now it's time to do that practice. Here's the step that so many people miss, and that is why they have prepared, and still do average in the exams, because they haven't practiced doing an exam. You guys, I will never forget the feeling of my torts exam. I did a story time about my criminal law exam. I was not confident. My torts exam, by the end of that exam, mind you, this is first 1L. This is my first semester 1L year. By the end of that exam, I was literally kicking it with my feet up, because I had done so many of that professor's practice exams and he did not stray from his usual form, that I killed that. I knew I killed that exam before. I knew that exam, I knew I did good, because I was literally typing, it was flowing out of me because I had practiced so much. And from that day on, I realized practice is everything. Okay, and so many people get to the point where they just study and they don't practice. So practice. It's annoying, but do it. Okay, do it. Please do it. You will not regret that. Okay, so I just have 2 more pieces of advice before I let you guys go today. The first one is, do not talk to people about your exam after exam is over. Get up, pick your bag up, go get your stuff, get to your car, leave, and just call it a day. Because people will start talking about that exam. And like I mentioned earlier, on law school exams, there's just so many routes you can go down. There can be more than one answer. And so you will literally hear people talk about the exams and they will say something that you didn't put down, and it will literally mess your mind up. You will freak out, and you don't want to do that because you still have more exams to take. And also, you don't get your exam grades back until January. So you don't want to spend a month freaking out about your exams. So to avoid that, just don't talk to people about the exam. It's going to be hard. You're going to want to talk about it. My advice is just don't. Okay, so my last piece of advice is move on from the exam. If you guys watched my story time about my first exam ever, I felt so defeated. You guys, I knew I failed that criminal law exam. If I had let that get to me, it would have affected my torts exam, which I just said that I did great on. My contracts exam, which I don't know that I felt great at the time, but I did great on that. It would have affected my performance on the rest of my exams. You cannot let these things get to you guys. So move on. No matter how bad you think you did, no matter how much you forgot, no matter how terrible you did, move on and start studying for that next exam so you can kill it on that one. Because if you messed up on the first one, well, if you kill it on that one, your GPA is going to go back up. And honestly, chances are you didn't mess up. Like, honestly, chances are it's just your anxiety and normal feelings of, you know, just being unsure about how you did because you've never done this before. So if you guys are still watching, that means you are not playing. You know, you are ready to kill your first round of exams. I challenge you to go either today or within the next day or so. Get that study schedule locked down, get it together, and then start studying for at least 1 month before the first week of your final exams. If you follow those tips, if you study, you will succeed on these exams. It's very hard. It's something that you've never experienced before, but you can do it, okay? If I can do it, you can do it, okay? So with that, good luck, you guys. You got this. And come back and tell me when y'all kill them exams, because I already know y'all about to kill them exams, you guys. All right, so y'all already know what to do. Go ahead and like this video so YouTube knows you guys like my content. Go ahead and subscribe if you have not already subscribed yet. Your girl is dropping gems, okay? And hit that notification bell so you get notified every time your girl uploads a new video, okay? We are on the road to 2,000 subscribers. The channel is lit. We are on the road to monetization. You guys, let's get it, all right? I will see y'all in the next video. Bye-bye.